Welcome back to the Turnaround Boardroom. I am your host, Paul Maskill. This podcast is for home service business owners who want to understand their numbers better. We're going to stop lying to ourselves. We're going to remove our emotions, remove our ego, get rid of the excuses, and let the numbers guide us. We focus on helping home service business owners just like you create predictable profitability and consistent positive cash flow. Today, we have with us a fellow home service business owner on the show. So we're going to really learn about his story. This is where we're going to dive into the good, the bad, the ugly of an actual business. All of our episodes are discussing real businesses. Remember, nothing discussed here should be considered financial, legal, or tax advice for your specific situation. Every business, including yours, is different. So today we have with us TJ Laury. TJ is a second-generation business owner. His father, Ben, started Ben's ProServe in 2017 after splitting from another successful family-owned home service business. The intention was to establish the company and then hand it down to his son and son-in-law. TJ has been running the company for just over a year now. As he says, they have a long way to go, but they're loving every minute of it. So, TJ, welcome to your first ever podcast. What's going on?
Thank you. Not a whole lot, man. Just nice to be able to carve out some time in my afternoon to do something different. So I'm excited. Normally, I'm spending most of this time putting out fires, so this is great.
Well, you're not alone. A lot of our listeners do the same thing, so I appreciate you carving out 30 to 40 minutes of your time to really just kind of dive into business. So give us a little backstory. What were you doing before taking over your dad's company?
So I actually was in the film and video industry. I started out as a young kid, like loving every bit of having a family-owned business. I couldn't wait to be able to be a part of it. And then obviously as kind of like adolescence hits, you start having that desire to carve your own path and make your own way, even though it's like, you've got something somebody wants to kind of serve up to you on a golden platter. I just, my personality didn't mix with that. And I had to go completely opposite almost, and went to school for film and video and ended up spending some time on the West Coast and then working back here on the East Coast actually. So spent about 7-8 years in that industry, jumping on mostly independent films, documentary work, a lot of marketing work, a lot of ministry type video work where I was traveling all over the world doing a lot of like mission video work, like helping raise support for certain organizations and stuff like that. So traveling a ton, and my life changed when two things happened. My family business decided to split. The family business that I grew up being a part of decided to split. My father went one way and my uncle went another way. And the other big thing that happened was my wife and I, we got pregnant with triplets. So it's all happened right at the same time. It was actually really crazy timing. I mean, I'm a Christian and a guy of faith, and I always believe, like I like to say, it was God's timing for me for sure, because there was no way I was coming back to work in a home services business, according to me, and actually quoted by me a number of times. So the only way that it was going to happen was by some miraculous event. And I just had to look at myself and look at what my family was going through at the time, and my dad not ready to retire. And he had a number of employees that were egging him on to start Ben's ProServe and wanted to come over with him. My brother-in-law was already working in the family business, so he wanted to go for it. And then I felt like, I was almost never home. I was on a plane almost every month flying somewhere. And I felt like, I have 3 babies coming. I need to be home. I need a job that, is going to allow me to be home every evening at least, and be able to help out with my family, and a little bit more constant support, for the family and financially. And yeah, man, that's how I got back into it. It was a lot of I thought about it a lot. I prayed about it a lot. It was a really long decision. People probably looked at me and were like, "What is wrong with you? This is so obvious." But I took really long. I asked a bunch of people who I would have viewed as mentors, and they were all like, "Dude, what are you doing, man?" And yeah, so eventually came to the decision, and never expected to be in a position where I would be running it. I always kind of felt like my brother-in-law would fall into that because he was there from the very, very beginning, transition from one business to another. But it just kind of became clear over the last year and a half, that we definitely have different talents, and different ways that we look at things. So he actually petitioned for me to take over. So that's where we're at.
Here we are. We're here, 2026. You're running the company. What does Ben's ProServe do best? What do y'all specialize in? What's the business look like today?
So HVAC is my bread and butter, as well as my brother-in-law too. We both grew up in that side of the industry. At the time, our prior family business, we did HVAC and plumbing. So we always were available to help out with the plumbers if we needed to, but I would never say that we were plumbers. So HVAC is always that's always what I wanted to do when I was, growing up and a teenager. And I loved HVAC because there was little bits and pieces of every trade in it. Like there might be some time where you have to know how to frame something. You have to wire an emergency switch. So you have to know a little bit of electrical. You have to do a drain on the furnace and the air conditioner. So you have to know a little bit of plumbing, and you have to know how much pitch to run your pipe. So I always loved HVAC because there was so much to it. Low voltage, high voltage, like just a ton. And I would say we both kind of gravitated towards that growing up. And I think that's our best. So we do electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. And I think HVAC is definitely our best trade, probably because we don't need to rely on anybody for the expertise there. We have our guys who are great, but when it comes to electrical and plumbing, we have to have guys that we rely on more to kind of run those departments, because it's not our forte. We know enough of it to get our hands dirty, but HVAC, I can come into your new construction job and lay it out day one and get started on day two. So it's probably our strongest. It's got our most cleanest procedures. From start to finish, I feel like the customer is getting a good product when it comes to our HVAC department, service and install. But I definitely feel like our install is really white glove.
Awesome. That's awesome. So where are you guys at from size wise, whether revenue, how much does HVAC make of it? What's the business size today?
Yeah. So size wise personnel, we hover between 40 and 50 employees total. Summer is usually our peak time. We got up right around about 50. For where we're at as a business, as far as, the things that we've established, the processes, procedures, how we handle our departments, we feel like under 50 is a good mark for us. Size wise, we're not really quite ready to grow past that. And we grew really fast. We got really big, really fast, I always say. Part of that was growth by acquisition, because my father always said we came from a bigger company, and he always said, I don't know how to run a small company. I know how to run a bigger company. So that was a big learning experience for my brother-in-law and me to be able to manage all of those people. So that's been a big core task of ours lately, is kind of breaking it down smaller so that it's not all falling to us or falling to one person here and there. But yeah, basically, most of our revenue is HVAC. We were about $7.5 million in revenue last year, and we were about $4 million HVAC, about $2.5 million plumbing, and then $1 million electrical.
Kudos to you. 40 to 50 employees. That's a big, strong team. What's the breakdown of? Do you guys do any construction work? Is it all service and replacement? What's your breakdown there?
No, we do more and more construction work, actually. Over the last couple of years, we've gotten more into it. And I think that's been just, for us, we always, like, probably to a fault at sometimes it's me. I want to keep our guys working. I don't ever want to have to lay anybody off because we're in a slow season. And so I've pursued contractors and new construction work, to where we're probably at, like in HVAC, we're probably at like an 80-20 split. So 20% new construction. I focus on, having a crew or a couple of crews that are kind of designated for that now. And then we kind of fill in the gaps as needed. But yeah, it kind of was birthed out of a place of, coming out of COVID, there was so much residential swap out work, so much work. And, now we kind of know the narrative that people were sitting at home and they didn't necessarily need to replace their systems back then. But there was all sorts of great rebates and financing and all the stuff that was being thrown at, stimulus checks being thrown at people. So we know a lot of people made the choice early to replace those systems. So if you're like most companies, you're coming in, out of 2023 and 24 and 25, you probably had a down year or two, where you really struggled finding that swap out residential work. So that we've always done a little bit of new construction, but it's been like 5%, 10%, like maybe a house or two a year. Now we're doing, 4, 5, 6 houses a year, and through all three trades.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's still a pretty healthy number to be at. So we had Dylan Caraway on the podcast as well. He works with Live Oak Bank and does purely SBA financing for acquisitions and growth and whatnot. And he even mentioned like the number that any SBA is looking at or private equity is looking at as far as what's a healthy number. There's really like 30% and under, and it's still a pretty healthy business. So if you're only 20%, 4, 5, 6 houses, you're in a pretty good spot. So how do you? Obviously, pricing's different, gross profit's different, cost of goods sold is different. And I see a lot of doing the work I do every day. I see a lot of businesses get hung up on this because they don't really know their numbers. Do you have any internal targets of what kind of gross profit you want on a construction side versus a service side versus an install side?
Yeah, so we're a little high on our construction side. I still think we have some work to do as far as managing those jobs. Right now, we've determined that our gross margin has to be about 37% on new construction. Which I know is a little high. We don't usually hit it. But for me, it's like, it's good to have a higher number to aim for. And that helps our project managers kind of be able to keep their foot in the gas a little bit. For residential swap outs, we're 50%. So awesome. Anything above 50% is amazing. And obviously, we're still happy if we're over 40. But we start hitting under 40 and we're like, what happened here? That's where we got to do some digging. Yeah.
Gotcha. And do you guys, for any of your construction stuff, is it all in-house? Do you guys use any subcontractors? What's your ideal model?
No, we do everything in-house. Yeah. We tested out those waters a few years ago and it wasn't for us.
I don't blame you. Especially, there's pros and cons to each, but it's a different ballgame when you go to the subcontract world, at least in the HVAC, plumbing and electrical space. So you've been running this thing for a little over a year now. You're $7.5 million. What's kind of the next step? Where do you guys want to take this business in the next 2 to 4 years? What's success look like?
So in the immediate future, we're looking to hey, revenue is great, but revenue is vanity in my opinion, right? Profit's reality. So we've grown steadily in revenue through the years, and we're very happy about that. But net profit hasn't always been where it's supposed to be. So the next goal is to keep cleaning things up. So we want to grow a little bit this year, just by putting in some practices that we've been working on. We think we're just going to naturally grow in revenue by about $500,000. Just because. So this year we're more focused on kind of padding that net profit number a little bit more. So that'll give us, some more opportunities to give a little bit more back to our employees, pay ourselves a little bit better. Last couple of years we've been waiting to pay ourselves a little bit. So we've been putting everything back into the business. So we're trying to clean up that net profit number. And then, 2 to 4 years, I feel like we're a $10 million company. With the amount of employees that we have and the work ethic that we have, core values, I think we can do 10 million at the size that we're at. And, if we can clean up things a little bit more on the front end, I think that's going to make a huge improvement on the back end when we are that size.
So what are some of the initiatives you guys are going to take? Because I hear this a lot from business owners in your space. Like, we've been focused on growing, but now we actually got to make some profit. We got to, get to that 15 to 20% net profit. Where are you guys at? Where are you trying to go? And then, what's the strategy to start making it happen?
So the first thing that we're doing, the first thing that we did was we hired a business coach. So, which I absolutely love. For me, for the last year and a half, being kind of a leader, I haven't had anybody to hold me accountable to anything. It's kind of like, try this, try that, try this, try that. I'm a big podcast guy. I'm a big book guy. So you pick out little nuggets from everything, and you try to figure out what's going to work for your company. And now I have a sounding board, first of all, that I can bounce ideas off of, and they can tell me they're not my employees, so they're not, they can tell me my idea sucks, which is great. So that was the first thing that we did. And honestly, having somebody say, you have a plan now, stick to the plan. And when you veer off course, I'm going to let you know about it. That's huge. I personally, I like accountability. It keeps me in line. I'm married, so, that's my wife is my accountability partner for the most part. But it's definitely been huge for me. We started about 5 months ago, and we've made a lot of really good changes. The first thing that we implemented was we job cost everything now. Like, absolutely job cost everything. We make sure every bit of material, every bit of piece of labor, guys are going to the proper jobs. They're there when they're supposed to be there. It helps you pinpoint all that stuff that you might be missing. So especially with new construction, it's hard to manage your labor and have an understanding of where you're going to fall. If you're waiting until the very end of the job costs it. So everything's done in real time now. We use ServiceTitan, which helps out a lot for us. You can create a project, which every purchase order, every little, every piece of labor is built into that project, and you can see things happening as they're happening, which is great. Then, we can know if, hey, so-and-so over in plumbing doesn't have anything to do today. Can we use him over on that job? Well, yeah, we might be able to use him. And this is something we were doing in the past a lot was, yeah, we might have work for him over at that job, but can the job allow it? All right. And then the next question is if the job can allow it, does having one more guy means that we're going to work more efficiently? It doesn't always mean that. If you've got one little space that you can work in, you can't just bury a guy in a job just because he needs something to do today and he needs to get paid for that day. Right. So that's been the biggest thing for me for install related jobs, especially new construction, is that real-time job costing to know where we're at on any given day, because now we can answer those questions. Let's see. The other thing that we are doing in service to help is we're implementing more spiffs for the guys, and we're training them on how to upsell. Our service technicians throughout the years have always been service technicians. We go out and we fix things, right? That's always been the mentality of our technicians, and they're really good at fixing things. But what we've been trying to preach lately is just fixing something is putting a Band-Aid on it. So like, if you're not looking at the root cause of a problem, you're not addressing the symptom of a problem, then most likely another repair is going to happen in the future. And now you got a customer who's going to be upset with you because you might have gone out to fix a capacitor, and now the capacitor just fried again, and they don't understand why. And like, if you're us, we put a 90-day warranty on all our service calls. So we might have to go back out for free because you didn't address the root of the problem. So what we say is, have you heard the rule of 3?
Let's hear it.
So the rule of 3, basically in a nutshell, is look for 3 reasons why a problem is happening and address all of those reasons with a customer. So at the very least, the customer has all of the information, right? So what could have led to a capacitor failing? Could the condensing coil be clogged, right? So like, then what you do is you give them 3 options for an estimate. You give them, this is going to repair your system today, just the basic, I'm going to replace the capacitor, and then now you have a good, better, best option where number 2 is maybe cleaning the condenser coil. And maybe those are the only 2 things that you have. Well, then your third option is we're going to add a condensing coil cleaning, a capacitor, and a maintenance plan on top of it, because your condensing coil needs to be cleaned every year, right? And you're obviously not doing that because it's been clogged for God knows how long. So we're giving them 3 options, and we're educating the customer. But they can choose. They can go all the way back and choose just the capacitor if they want to. So it just comes down to, like, that's the narrative that we're trying to change for our technicians is you're not upselling, you're educating the customer, right? So like, our big thing is we want everybody to win, right? We want the customer to win because we want the customer to have knowledge about their home and their system. We want their house to be safe and efficient, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, we want our techs to win because our techs get paid spiffs based off of what they upsell. So they get to make more money if all they're doing is educating the customer. And then number three, upselling makes our average tickets higher, so the company wins. So we can make more based off of one job if the technicians are practicing that rule of three. So it's something we're working on. It's a brand new initiative. I've got my work cut out for me, but I'm excited about it. I like to coach. I like to teach and work with the guys. I'm trying to learn how to carve out more time for myself so I can spend more time teaching and coaching instead of putting out fires. That's been a big thing for me, and I think that's probably step 3, right? In your question is get more time for TJ so he can actually make improvements. But we're just not quite there yet. We're getting there.
Yeah, and a couple of things that you said, TJ, I think our listeners can really take away is, going back to the job costing even, I see it all the time. It's like, well, how much do you spend in material? They're like, well, it's about $100. It's like, well, is it about 100 or is it 112? Is it 115? Yeah. When you're only doing abouts and you do it a lot, you're going to lose because we always go, just like, how long does it take? Oh, it takes about 5 minutes. Like nothing takes 5 minutes. You're at a minimum, you're at someone's house for probably 45 minutes, even if it's a quote unquote 5-minute fix. So really getting those numbers dialed in and realizing what you have to charge based on the cost that are associated with it. And then I love the idea of, educating and options and using something like ServiceTitan to make it easier. To your point, it's really just serving the customer if it's done right, because the customer doesn't know what they don't know. And you're going to lose all the trust if they finally say, well, why do you keep replacing this capacitor? It's like, oh, actually, the reason's this. Well, it's like, well, why do you ever tell me that? We could have fixed that the first time, right? I equate it to, even when we had our electrical company, equated to like going to the doctor. If you go to the doctor and your knee hurts, they're still going to take your temperature. They're still going to take your blood pressure. They're still going to take your pulse. And then eventually they'll look at why you called, but it's their responsibility because they're the experts, just like your HVAC technician is the expert. So it's their responsibility to look at all those things and figure out what's actually causing it. Because if you go to the doctor and your blood pressure's through the roof and they're just like, oh, just take some Advil for your knee. And then all of a sudden you find out 2 weeks later, your blood pressure's through the roof. And you're like, doctor, why didn't you tell me? It's like, well, because you didn't come in for that. Like, we're the same way in the home. We're the experts. We need to bring everything to the table. So that's what we're working on to get the profit higher. What is your internal profit goal? Where are you at? How far do you have to go to get there?
We have pretty far to go. Eventually, I'd like to be 10%. At best, we're hovering around 5. So we need to more than double. I mean, and hovering around 5 has been the better years. Our overhead's been high, so we've been working on getting our overhead down. So because a lot of times, at the end of the month, you pull your numbers and you run, your gross margins are pretty good. And then you dig down deeper into it and you're like, well, where'd the rest of the money go? And it's, oh man, our overhead. We're going to have to look at this. So yeah, ServiceTitan doesn't help there because it's a very expensive product,
right?
But it's a necessary evil, man. I always say I have a love-hate relationship with ServiceTitan for sure. But
to your point though, you said it earlier, and I feel like a lot of our listeners there, and I know a lot of people are there. I don't want everyone to believe everything they hear on social media and they see everyone, we're at 20% net profit or gross profit 60%. I'm making all this money. I do financial assessments of companies every day. The story TJ is telling, that is a very normal story. I've said it before. I did 70 financial assessments I looked at in December over the last 12 months. So in 2025, the average company's net profit was around 4%. So for everybody out there telling you they're all doing 20% net profit, I'm here to tell you, TJ's here to vouch for it. It's a lot harder than everybody says it is. But I think one of the things you said, that we could get to 10 million without really changing anything. That's where a lot of companies are at, of like, hey, we've got the overhead and we've got the payroll and the office staff to support 10 million, but we're only at 7.5. Now, what I want
100%.
Everybody to do is, when you get to 10 million, don't have the overhead and the payroll and everything of a $15 million company, because then you get in this vicious cycle. So what TJ's doing here, and I commend you, TJ, for doing that, is like, let's slow down now and kind of right size this thing before we scale to the next level.
Yeah.
With you running this thing called the last year and a half, what's been the most stressful pressure thing that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that maybe you didn't really think of before you took on this role?
Uh, it's two things. It's always has to deal with people. People love to interject their opinions and things, and uh, it's either customer or employee related. And it's just putting out fires with people. It's for me, it's like mentally draining. Like if I spend most of my day just on the phone trying to put fires out, this guy's either this employee's disgruntled or this customer's disgruntled. I am like drained at the end of the day. It's exhausting for me. Um, and I wouldn't say, I always tell people I'm an extroverted introvert. I like my small group of friends, but like my main goal isn't to go out and have, a million conversations on a daily basis. Like that's not who I am. Um, but when I have a one-on-one conversation like this, I can really open up, right? Uh, but yeah, when you're dealing with multiple issues on a daily basis, it's oh man, it's draining. At the end of the day, I'm like, I need a big cup of coffee just to get me through because I want to get home and hang out with my kids. It's like, but you don't want to be exhausted. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I don't know if I could say I didn't see it coming. I knew there would be some of that for sure. Um, but at first, at least, I didn't recognize it would be so much. I kind of like my attitude when I was in the field and even when I worked in the film industry was I have a job to do. I'm going to go out and do my job. And I think I just had an expectation for my employees that every employee was going to have that same mindset. And when they didn't, it was like, oh, well, this is different. And I also kind of, same thing for my customers. I probably had an expectation for our customers that they were just happy to see us, and it didn't matter what we charged or what we did, as long as we repaired a system for them, as long as we got heat back on, as long as we were able to fix their leaking pipe or get their power back on. And I kind of missed the fact that not everybody was going to be happy that our prices are what they are, or, our technician forgot to put booties on, because that still does happen as much as we preach against it. It still does happen from time to time. And yeah, dealing with those calls is not I deal with less and less of them for sure. I've been able to delegate a lot, but I still do get the really bad ones. That's the thing. I get less of them, but I get the really bad ones
When
now.
it goes to the top, there's nobody above you, so you got to deal with it.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So to go from where you're at, call it $7.5 million, 5% net profit. 2 to 3 years from now, you want to get it to 10 million. Call it 10 to 15% net profit. You're working on job costing. You're working on options, getting the average ticket up, getting the closing rate up. Making sure your gross profit's dialed in. What do you foresee are the biggest barriers to go from where you're at to that $10 million more profitable mark?
Yeah, going right in line with what we were just talking about, it's got to be employee buy-in. Um, they have to understand the vision and the mission. They have to understand that like this isn't for TJ to go out and buy a big boat. It's for everybody that works for the company. Like we truly do want to take care of everyone that works for us. Um, we think if you earn something, you deserve credit for it, right? Like if you earn that job and you were the reason that customer booked that big job, then you deserve something back for that, whether it's in profit sharing or spiff. I really do want all my employees to win, and I really want them to understand that. But they have to buy in. In order for us to all win, they have to buy in and be able to view it as this is the best thing for the company. It's not because Stan, Ben, and TJ want a bucket of money, you know? Not that we don't, but it's we truly care about our team. Um, and none of us want to none of us want to get filthy rich. Um, we always say, we want everybody to be comfortable. And we think that everybody has a path to get there with us. It's just, are we going to get there? Right. So, yeah, employee buy-in for sure. And, now that we've kind of established, like, there's always a moment of transition, right? Because my father's a product of the 70s and 80s. So, being a product of the 70s and 80s, there wasn't this whole mission statement, core values, vision. Like, people when I said I have that expectation that you just come to work and do your work, that's kind of how I was raised, right? And that's kind of how the employees at that time were. It was just like, hey, this is my job, this is what I do. Nowadays, like millennials and even Gen Z, I feel like they're looking for a purpose. They want to be in line with the company's mission before they get a job. Um, so, we found ourselves needing to go back and now transitioning from Ben, it was kind of like, Ben, you didn't need to know what Ben's mission and vision were because Ben was the big boss who just did what Ben said. Now that we've transitioned away from Ben to me, we've needed to establish those things. Number one, we have a younger workforce that wants to hear those things from us. And number two, they also deserve the opportunity to say, hey, do we like this? Do we align with what TJ and Stan are looking to do with the company? Is it cool that they want to put their own spin on it? Because, we could have kept things the way they were and just, not changed, but we recognize that we're not going to grow if we don't change. Um, and we feel like we need to grow. We need to at least, we need to grow in the ways that we're aiming for. So yeah, so Dan, that was a really long-winded answer. Um, but employee buy-in for sure, and they need to recognize either I'm buying in or, they need to go make a move and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and to your point of, from Ben's standpoint to TJ's standpoint, it can get tricky in the trades with the mission, vision, and values because historically, even now, the average age of people in the trades is still, they were the products of the 70s and 80s, right? The average age
Right.
of people in the trades is 55, 60 years old. But we have like, the people are just show up, work hard, shut up, and, be grateful you have a paycheck versus the other people who want to buy into the mission and vision. And it's like, how do we build this organization where, everybody can win? And to your final point, at some point we have to realize that this isn't for everybody. And to me, the best part about that in the trades is if you decide they're not the best fit for your organization today, they can be reemployed by somebody else in the trades by the end of today. So it's not like you're putting them out there and they're not going to have another opportunity. It's just what they're looking for isn't aligned with our mission and our vision and our values. So
Right.
um, good luck to you, TJ. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Last question I have for you is if there's someone listening right now, maybe they're a few steps behind you, not super profitable, doing $5 million in revenue, and they think, well, if I just do more revenue, I'm going to solve that problem, the profit problem, the cash flow problem. What would you tell them if they think that's going to solve it?
I would say you are not going to solve it. Obviously, everything starts with sales, right? But just adding more sales on top of sales on top of sales. If you have a problem in the underbelly of your business, more sales is not going to fix it. We tried for 2, 3 years to do that. And what's funny is when we were smaller in revenue, our net profit was higher. And the larger that we've grown in revenue, the smaller our net profit has been. So those problems, if anything, they actually just multiply. So you think you might add more to your bottom line by growing revenue, but the small problems that you have are just going to increase. I mean, they're there. It's just the size that they're there. So my recommendation, and like I have these conversations all the time because we're friendly with other companies in the trades. I view it as like, hey, even though it's competition, it's friendly competition. And I got a few guys that we all pick brains and see what everybody's doing and see what the hardships are. And some of these guys are pretty small, and my recommendation is always to them is like, look, I know you guys look at us and you're like, oh my gosh, you have 20 some trucks on the road. That's amazing. I see your trucks everywhere. And like, yeah, it feels good when people say that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, what's your net profit? And there's a few of them that their net profit's better than mine. If we're just talking dollars and cents, not a percentage, their net profit's better than mine, and they're doing way less in revenue, and they have way less trucks on the road. So what I always say to them is I say, look, just being honest here, focus on your company, keep things clean, keep it as simple as possible. The rest is going to come. But if you don't focus on, processes, procedures, making sure that things are clean, it's just going to, like I said, it's just what problems do you have? Okay, do you want them to be big problems or small problems? If you want them to be big problems, go ahead and just focus on your revenue because I guarantee you those problems will just become big problems.
Well said. TJ Laury, thank you again for coming on the show today. If our listeners want to connect with you and just talk shop, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Instagram, probably the best for me personally, TJ Laury 17. Keep it simple, just my name and my hockey number.
I was going to say that seemed like a hockey handle. You seem like a hockey player, so
Yeah,
that
that's my
fits.
sport. I'm super pumped right now. I'm living on that USA hockey high. That was awesome. First gold medal in 46 years. So I know somebody could be listening to this podcast 2 years down the road, but we just won the gold medal, so we're pumped.
Yes, as of recording, won the gold medal 2 days ago, so TJ's
Yep.
pumped.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So
that's probably best. Facebook, I'm a millennial. I don't check that a whole lot. Yeah, if anything, Instagram would probably be the best shot, or email, which is just my name again, TJ Laury at bensproserve.com is always cool too.
awesome, TJ. Appreciate it. Everyone else out there, if this episode sounds familiar or inspires you and you want to be a guest on the show, just like TJ, send me an email to come on the show, paul@thebluecollaradvisors.com. Our number one focus is interviewing home service business owners who are either stuck in the grind or made it to the other side. Thanks, y'all.